Hello, this is the 236th edition of Catch of the Day, available on the Branch Talk YouTube channel. Today we're going to continue reading from a book written by Doug Mitchell, entitled The Four Carpenters, The Ensign, The Time of Jacob's Trouble, and The First Deliverance. Starting at the top of page 85, we read, "The type shows the same reluctance on the part of God's people to return to their homeland at that time. It was those whose spirit God had raised, Ezra 1:5, who had returned under the decree of Cyrus. But God ceased not to plead with those who voluntarily remained in the land of their exile. And through manifold agencies, he made it possible for them also to return. The large number, however, of those who failed to respond to the decree of Cyrus remained unimpressible to later influences, and even when Zechariah warned them to flee from Babylon without further delay, they did not heed the invitation." Prophets and Kings 599 and 600. Has that not been the response of a large number of professed Bible believers today? While it is not our purpose in this study to bring in all of the details regarding Jacob's time of trouble, we have had to mention those highlights in order to show both why the saints will have to flee to the valley made by the Lord's feet, and what is that smooth place where there are no obstacles and hindrances. A further look at the type will show us the results of the people not responding when and how the Lord would have them. Meanwhile, conditions in the Medo-Persian realm were rapidly changing. Darius Hystaspes, under whose reign the Jews had been shown marked favor, was succeeded by Xerxes the Great. It was during his reign that those of the Jews who had failed of heeding the message to flee were called upon to face a terrible crisis. Having refused to take advantage of the way of escape God had provided, now they were brought face to face with death. Prophets and Kings 600. Just as in the type, after the call was made to return to the land in 1958 and was ignored by most of those who were called, conditions in the world, and particularly in the U.S., have been rapidly changing. In 1960, Protestant America had let down their sword, and it elected a Catholic president, John Kennedy. Brother Roden said that in doing so, they brought the number 666 upon the office of the presidency, more fully healing the wound that the papacy received. The healing of the wound in 1929, when the papacy received back their temporal throne, was only a prelude to the wound healing in the hearts of the Protestant Christians, which healing was evidenced by them electing a Catholic as president. Moreover, in 1961, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled Sunday laws constitutional. In 1975, President Ford signed the Energy Bill, Public Law number 94-163. That bill enabled the President to bring in a plan which imposes reasonable restrictions on the public or private use of energy, which are necessary to reduce energy consumption due to the severe energy supply interruption, or in order to fulfill obligations of the United States under the International Energy Program. Violations of said law are to result in severe civil penalties, fines, and imprisonment. Those reasonable restrictions include driving on Sunday, which restriction the Supreme Court ruled constitutional in 1975. The Energy Bill. Public Law Number 94163. Sponsored by Senators Kennedy and Jackson et al. Was signed by the President Ford, on December 22nd, 1975. There are many other changes in policy and law that have been and are being brought in that will be used to oppress those who are holding forth the truth. Each of them is fundamentally an affront to God's commandments and statutes and judgments, and is designed to compel men's consciences. The decree that will finally go forth against the remnant people of God will be very similar to that issued by Ahasuerus against the Jews. Today the enemies of the true church see in the little company keeping the Sabbath commandment a Mordecai at the gate. The reverence of God's people for his law is a constant rebuke to those who have cast off the fear of the Lord and are trampling on his Sabbath. Satan will arouse indignation against the minority who refuse to accept popular customs and traditions. Men of position and reputation will join with the lawless and the vile to take counsel against the people of God. Wealth, genius, education will combine to cover them with contempt. Persecuting rulers, ministers, and church members will conspire against them. With voice and pen, by boasts, threats, and ridicule, they will seek to overthrow their faith. By false representations and angry appeals, men will stir up the passions of the people, not having a "Thus saith the Scriptures" to bring against the advocates of the Bible Sabbath. They will resort to oppressive enactments to supply the lack. To secure popularity and patronage, legislatures will yield to the demands of Sunday laws. But those who fear God cannot accept an institution that violates a precept of the Decalogue. On this battlefield will be fought the last great conflict in the controversy between truth and error, and we are not left to doubt as to the issue. Today, as in the days of Esther and Mordecai, the Lord will vindicate his truth and his people. Prophets and Kings 6:05. This, as we are well aware, will happen first in the U.S., where the greatest amount of light has been proclaimed and rejected. Yet even at first, it will not be restricted solely to the U.S. England and other allied Christian nations, those who comprise Assyria, will simultaneously bring the rod, Sunday laws, within their local jurisdictions before Babylon the Great mounts the scarlet-colored beast and brings forth the worldwide decree. Not only did Brother Roden call for individuals and families to return to the land in a time of peace, but in tracts published in 1972, New General Conference Building opens, and again in 1977, Deliverance in the Remnant, he called for the General Conference to move their headquarters to Jerusalem so that their work would not suffer under the local Sunday laws. But they failed to give heed to the call. Time will tell of the consequences of their refusal to heed the Lord's voice. The result of this situation is what is detailed in Isaiah 28. The chapter is directed toward the drunkards of Ephraim, verse 1 and 3. While Brother Hartoff identified Ephraim as being the Protestants,